Hey, Aaron, how you doing today?
I'm doing great. How about yourself?
I'm doing great. Thank you for coming and kicking it with Kira.
Oh, for sure. I appreciate the invite.
Of course. So let me introduce Aaron to everybody. Aaron is an occupational therapist who actually has his own podcast called Black from the Wall, where he discusses Black males' point of view on many topics. He also invites women to join his platform as well. So, Aaron, tell me about your background growing up and your college life, especially since we both went to the same alma mater, WSSU. If you ain't around,
Oh,
then you ain't.
for sure. Facts. My name is Aaron Lide. Once again, junior. I'm originally from Rayford, North Carolina, a small town outside of Fayetteville, North Carolina. Born and raised there. So 910, what's up? Went to high school there, matriculated to Winston-Salem State University with an undergraduate major in exercise physiology and a master's in occupational therapy. And I'm also CEO and producer of Black Fly on the Wall Productions, which is a platform that had not only one show, but a second show blossoming from it. And essentially it's a platform that advocates for Black men, provides Black men with a safe space to communicate about topics related to them that they typically encounter on a daily basis, related to relationships, mental health, financial literacy, wealth building, anything that you can possibly think of that Black men may encounter on their day. We discuss it. Kira, I appreciate the invite, and I'm ready to get into it.
Of course, and I could definitely co-sign that you have an amazing podcast. I've checked out quite a few episodes on YouTube. I think it covers quite a variety of different things. You have different type of men that's on there as well. So I love that it's a variety of different views, different backgrounds, some married, not married, different age ranges, pretty much around the same dynamic, but I think it's really, really dope. So y'all definitely check him out. Okay,
yeah,
and so
I
was able to check out a few because definitely quite a few different ones that you have on there. I did see where that you highlighted the dynamics of different males and females in their partnerships and relationships and things. In our society today, do you think that men and women's standards are too high when choosing a partner?
Absolutely. I believe us as individuals have become a little spoiled when it comes to this actual topic of men and women and their standards, expectations, and how those things don't typically align with reality. I think we're in a difficult time. I was on Clubhouse last night talking about our latest episode, 34, which is Black Women, It's Okay to Marry a Man That Makes $42K. And I was telling a story about how, when my grandmother met my grandfather, her main intent was to find a helpmate, right? She wasn't overly concerned with the amount of money he made. She wasn't overly concerned about what he had and what he didn't have. It was just mostly focused on the fact that she was looking for a mate, someone who could protect her, someone who could serve as a solid partner, and somebody who could establish a legacy. And when I say legacy, I mean a family, grandkids, great-grandchildren, and so on and so on. And so I believe that our generation in particular, modern men and women, have set unrealistic expectations that don't align with their beliefs, their energy, their intent, even down to how they take care of themselves physically. I think that we ask for things that we can't afford. It's kind of like having an expensive champagne taste on a cheap wine budget. That's something my mom says quite often. It's like you have these expectations that you want this, you want this, you want that. Yeah, you want it, but can you really afford it? And I believe that our currency as millennials is our image, our grind. I think as we get deeper into masculine and femininity, we get deeper into the roles that we play in relationships. I think it's about being humble and being realistic. I think sometimes you just got to ask yourself, like, who's going to be your partner when you're 55, 60, 70, 75 years old? I I think one thing that helps me gain this perspective is like in my line of work, being an occupational therapist, working in a hospital, working in a trauma unit, cancer units, orthopedic units, primarily working in outpatient, I see people age through the paradigm of life. So I'm able to see at 8 o'clock in the morning, see a 29-year-old who was involved in a traumatic car accident. And then at 4 p.m., I may be seeing an 85 or 90-year-old woman who's not going to make it past another month, but her husband is there with her. And in those moments, it doesn't matter about what the man makes. It doesn't matter about how tall he is. It doesn't matter about does he have a full beard. No, what a lot of my patients tell me before they die is that, you know what, I'm just glad that I have my husband or my wife here with me. And that's what you can call a helpmate, right? Somebody you can transition through life with. And I think we've gotten out of the bubble of being humble and realizing our true worth and what our actual currency is.
I definitely agree with many points that you have said. I think that it really should be about the partnership, but a lot of things have definitely been created off of superficial value. When it comes to male and female, when it comes to women's perspective and men, it's definitely financial perspective on it. And I think with men, it comes to superficial as in looks. I think sometimes men, they want a traditional woman on a lot of aspects, but then what you're actually seeking out, you already see what you're getting, but yet you want something that's completely different. I think with women, with social media and things nowadays, everybody wants a Russell, or they want the rapper that's buying this bag or doing this to take you shopping and things. But there's a lot of things that goes on behind the scenes as well on a lot of things, because like monetary value doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to be happy in a relationship. And I can just go off of me personally. I choose off of the partnership that I'm going to have with that person. I've always maintained my own income, and I've dated people that literally had $5 to their name, but I knew the potential that they had to become or where they're at now to make 6, 7, 8 figures. But you had to really dig deep into the actual personality of somebody as opposed to superficial things, because superficial only lasts a certain amount of time. Because if you're with somebody and say they start off, they have like 6, 7, 8 figures, what if they lost it all the next day? What type of value do you have on your relationship? So I definitely agree with what you said. With somebody that's like older or you're sick or things, that monetary thing or superficial stuff, it doesn't matter.
Absolutely. Absolutely. That was one of the points that were made last night as well about, okay, let's say, for instance, you're 30 years old and you meet your dream guy and he makes $100,000 a year, and then the following year he is out of work for a year, right? So that money is no longer a factor, right? So you married him based off of the amount of money he made primarily. That was a major box check off for you. But now he no longer has that income. Do you still respect that man, even though he's now bringing in zero? So I think our expectations and reality are not aligned when it comes down to what men and women expect. And I think also men and women a lot of times don't look at how they're aging. Your options at 22 are not the options you have at 30. You have less, right? So especially if you want a woman that's in a particular profession that looks a certain type of way, that's a certain weight, a certain skin complexion, a certain eye color, a certain whatever, right? You have these preferences. The more preferences you put on yourself, the likelihood of you finding what you want is slim to none. It's kind of like shopping for a shirt online. Once you put a whole bunch of filters on it, it typically gives you 1 or 2 options, right? And that's online. Imagine being in a geographic region where your partner or the person that you want and aspire to be with is not even in your geographic region, right? So it's a multi-level and it's a multi-tier conversation, but all in all, I think our expectations are not aligned with our reality.
Yeah, I definitely I understand where you are coming from on those. And let's go on to, since we're talking about relationships, what do you think about love languages when it comes to relationships? Do you think that just in general that people understand how part of the significance it is to understand your spouse's love language?
Absolutely. We have an episode on Black Fun Wall entitled But Does She Speak Your Love Language? And essentially it talks about and it introduces listeners to love languages, and particularly from the man's point of view of, these are the things that I like as a man. These are my love languages, and these are the things that keep me in tune. I think there's not a lot of realistic conversations about love languages and expectations once you're in a relationship with someone. I always I always have the saying that, it takes effort and energy to maintain the relationship. So if you thought it was a challenge to get that person, men or women, it's going to be even harder to maintain it. And the way you maintain it is by attending and praising the individual through whatever love language that they like. And so, for example, I think a common mistake is that people try to love their partner the same way they like to be loved. And you kind of miss out on some beautiful moments by doing that. But it's also about the availability of the knowledge, right? I think a lot of people, it's kind of like retraining. You have to retrain your mind when it comes to that. You have to retrain how you operate within the relationship, whereas it's just natural to do things for other people that you like because it's going to give you a gratifying feeling whenever you do it because it's something that you would actually like as well. So if you love gifts and you buy your partner this amazing gift, you're going to be excited to give them the gift, right? Because it's something that you would like. Versus if your partner was someone whose top love language was words of affirmation, then that person just may want to hear something nice told to them, or a compliment, or how they're grinding in the gym, or how they're grinding on work, or how they keep killing it in graduate school, or whatever it may be. Those things are a lot more valuable to a person like that than an actual gift, right? Or quality time, physical touch, and the list goes on. And so I think it's very important to in your level of communication. I feel like that's a superior level of communication in your relationship, that you're actually listening and paying attention to the person's love languages.
Right, I definitely agree, especially what you said about about having the knowledge behind it, because some people just don't know, so it's not intentional. The 5 love languages are affirmation, quality time, physical touch, acts of service, and receiving gifts. Now, my love language is all 5, okay? But no, all five. Just spoil me up. But no, seriously, I definitely, you hit the nail on the head when you said that just because it's your love language doesn't mean it's the other person. It was unbeknownst to me at the time, but I had to learn that as well because I'm a big birthday person. My birthday is everything. It's a holiday, it's a celebration, it's a festival. And so I put into a lot of effort in other people on their birthday. I'm extremely sentimental in my relationships. And so on one particular birthday with somebody I dated, did a whole shenanigans of something that I would want. And that was not their love language. They appreciated it, but they would have rather us just let them watch the game and eat pizza and, do something else instead of the whole shenanigans and things. And sometimes if you really don't know certain things, your feelings might be hurt. You might feel some type of way, but it's really not really at the fault of the other person. You just really have to, at the end of the day, you have to communicate and really get to know each other and what really excites the other person and what that person really likes, so you can please them in that way. Because every time it's not always going to be the in-love high, but when you actually are able to identify that person's love language, it definitely gets you a lot farther.
Absolutely.
Okay, and what do you think about the stigmas that's on society now, like when you should get married, when you should have children? I know that you did mention of like the older that you get, the less chances that you have for certain opportunities and things. But what do you feel about when people say, because you're not married and you don't have kids, what do you think when people put that assumption on you that you should do this and do that?
I think we have to also look at it in reality and understand that women have 10 times more pressure than men to get married at a younger age, right? Because you all are dealing with, especially if the woman aspires to be a mother, right? The older that you get, the higher risk you get at over 35 years old of high-risk pregnancy, right? That's a fact. So I think women, the biological clock thing that women speak about on an often occasion is a true thing, right? So it's best for women to get married at a younger rate than men. I say that because many times if a woman does want to get married and have children at a younger age, A lot of women, not all, a lot of women don't want to work full-time and contribute more than 50% to the household, right? They may want to stay out of work and do maternity for 3 months, 4 months, 6 months, whatever it may be. And with that being said, that means that you need to have a stable household income in order to do that. And guess what? How do you do that? You're married to a man that has a higher income. Okay, who are these individuals that have a higher income? Typically a man that is a little bit up in age, right? So a woman that's 25, 26, 27 may be more beneficial for her to marry a man that is 32, 33, 34, 35 years old, because this man will be climbing towards his financial peak. So a man's financial peak is typically between 45 and 50 years old, right? So if you marry a man that's 35 years old, he'd be 10 years from his financial peak. He'd be way better off at 35 than where he was at 25. You know what I'm saying? So it's multiple factors that come into it. I think men have a lot more flexibility based on just our whole genetic makeup, and that's something that's often ignored. I don't think it's like a linear conversation. Is it fair? No, but is it reality? Is it how things are in the world we live in? Yeah.
Oh yeah, I definitely agree.
So, but it's all based on a woman's, right? It's all based on a woman's. If a woman says, "Oh, I don't want to have children," and whatever it may be, she can wait to get married. But the difficult thing with that is that many men, if not, I would go ahead and guess and throw out 90% or more wants to have children. They want to have a seed in their lifetime, right? So if you're a woman that don't want to have kids, finding a man that doesn't want to have kids could also be a challenge. And for this man to fit into your box of what you want, ethnicity, heterosexual background, height, hygiene, swag, education, religious background, I mean, it's just like the same analogy. It's putting the filters on. You're looking for a shirt on ASOS, and you put a whole bunch of filters on there. ASOS is going to give you limited options, sometimes none. So it's kind of like going back to the original question of the first question you asked about expectations, and are we in alignment with that? If you are a woman that waits to get married or waits to have children at 35 years old, but you have the expectations of marrying a six-figure guy and starting a family, Manny would say that your expectations are outside of your reality. You're too old, right? And you should have done that 10 years ago, as far as being focused on that, whereas men have a little bit more flexibility.
I can understand what you're saying with the flexibility and the options, but I personally feel as though when it comes to like age range, guys definitely have a longer span just off of health as we know it. Halle Berry and some other women, they're defying the odds. But I think with different scientific methods that it is possible at 39, 40, however your age may be, to have a child if that's your true desire to go forward with that. I always feel
is that for the average woman or for wealthy women, though? Because when you have money, you have the flexibility to have other options. So as far as with your eggs and getting pregnant and carrying through the pregnancy, a celebrity. But how many women in your circle or in your family are getting pregnant, carrying the baby at 39 years old, and having the baby and marrying the man that they want to marry in that moment in time?
Right. And so you have to ask the question as well as to why is that woman waited that late? Did they choose to wait that late because they just wanted to? And I just come up my scenario because I chose within myself, I did not want to have a child until I was at least 30 years old. I always say to anybody who knows me, I never want to have a child before I'm 30. I chose that because I wanted my 20s to be my selfish years. I knew I wanted to travel. I knew I wanted to focus on my career. I knew there were things that I wanted to accomplish and do selfishly before I indulged into having a child, because I'm a very type A type of person, and I'm a very undivided attention to something or someone I care about. So I knew when I decided to have a child, that's going to be my main focus point. And so me having a child before 30 wasn't really, that was something that I prayed on, that I really wanted. Now, marriage-wise, yes, but having a child-wise, No, that was just something in my specific preferences of what I didn't feel as though that was something necessary for me. Now, if something happened in that timeline, okay, but it wasn't something that I felt that was needed. Some women, when they're growing up, they feel as though that their main goal in life is to be a mom. If they're a mom, they don't care about career, they don't care about different things. Every woman is not the same. My goal was when I was growing up, I always wanted to be a businesswoman. I wanted to dress up. I wanted to be a boss. I wanted to do different things. Those, like my education was important. Me traveling was important. Me being very successful in my mind state and accomplish different goals before I had a child, that was important to me. And so you have to take that to accountability as well, because everybody's alignment of what they want in life is not always the same. But I do get what you're saying. The older that you get, the more that you have slim pickings on it. But sometimes we will sacrifice those slim pickings because there's somebody out there for everybody to obtain the things that you want within yourself, because there's some people that had children or got married young off the expectation of others or society says that it's something that you should do, and they're not happy. So you have to do what's best for your alignment for your life.
Mm-hmm. Now, I think also, too, I feel like, me and my friends have this conversation about how often do we operate within what's going on in front of us, right? Like, it's like, for example, you mentioned, Halle Berry. We don't know Halle Berry, right? We know our friends. We know our friends that we know or may not know of friends in our circle that waited till they were 40 to get married, right? Like, how many people do we know that's actually doing the things that we say that we are going to do? Or how often do we speak in hypotheticals because we feel like we have the right to speak in that way, right? Like, and also, too, the success rate of these things. Like, it's kind of weird, and we were talking about this last night on Clubhouse too, how our generation is kind of doing the opposite of what our grandparents' generation did, whereas a lot of our grandparents stayed married throughout a long period of time. My grandfather passed away in 2011. My grandparents were married for 50-some years at that point already, right? They established a legacy. That's how I'm here, So it's kind of like, are we reinventing the wheel with this thing? I think one thing for sure we don't know, but we're going to find out in 20 years. In 20 years, most of us will be 50 years old. We'll find out how happy we are with life, whether we are single, not married, and childless, and if we still would give our 30-year-old self the same advice that we're taking now. I'm curious.
Yes,
because I was raised based on what was my mom always told me don't reinvent the wheel. So if you see something that's successful, you replicate it and you add your little spark on it and you make it even better. And the generation after you replicates it, adds their spark on it, and make it even better. I've seen the success of how something is done, so I'm not going to do anything different.
I can understand. I think what you're saying is, well, your household is different than other people's households as well. And so do you grew up with both of your parents in the household?
No.
Okay.
My parents got divorced whenever I was 12. But I had other examples to look at. I had my grandparents. I had my uncle and I had other relationships to look at, and taking the wisdom from people who are married and have been married for over 20 years. This is the typical advice that they give, right? I feel like we take a lot of advice sometimes from people who are not doing the things that we seek, right? We don't take advice from women. It'd be one thing if women took advice from other 35, 40-year-old women that got pregnant at 37 years old and got married at 40 and was married to their dream guy. If you have multiple mentors that's doing that, hey, go for it. But most of your mentors that are married with children typically were married at a younger age. So it's like, are we doing what we think is right, or are we actually following wise counsel?
And I believe that if we're going on to what our grandparents, great-parents, and things did, that structure of their household really doesn't correlate to today, because then they fought for marriages. They fought for we're going to stay together, or the man was a provider for the household. There's over 17 million households in the U.S. that are single-parent households. 90%, 92% of them are women that are the single parents that are having to raise these children not the men. And so with me as a woman, I wanted to as well to make sure that let me finish. I wanted to make sure that I'm able to provide a structure financially for myself and for my family, because we all want the picket fence. We all want the fairy tale, but at the end of the day, many will get it, many will not. And so we can't really go off of what the structure of was 50, 60, 70, 80 years ago for everybody, because everybody doesn't still hold that same moral code to this day.
But that doesn't make things not true to what they are, though. If you don't hold that moral structure to this day, that's your problem, right? I feel like we need to get a little bit more cutthroat.
It is a lot of people's problem.
But hold on. We have to get a little bit more cutthroat and real about these conversations and not playing so nice. It's like, if you don't seek those morals that your grandparents had, that is your problem. And you will produce an outcome that is not on the same level as your generations that came before you. Like you mentioned, a lot of single households, right? The reason for that is that women are having babies out of wedlock. They're not waiting to have a child whenever they're married. So it's like we have to get down to the meat of it. Like, it's not that it's a single household because it's a single household. It's a single household and you're raising a child simply because you're not married. It takes two people to get married.
And right, let's get down to the meat of it as well, because as a lot, not even black men, a lot of men, they're not upholding what their granddaddy and their great-granny did as marrying these women that are good to them as well, because there's a lot of men that they don't want marriage, they're not seeking marriage, they have multiple things going on, they're not ready after years, or a year or two, 5, 6 years down the line. It's a lot of stringing along, or it's a lot of playing games. Some people don't even want a monogamous relationship out here with people that are very good. So you have to take that factor into, because sometimes women, they might have a child out of wedlock with somebody on purpose by accident, but we have to take into accountability. It's a lot of men that act like they don't want to be in a serious relationship, a serious, committed, and faithful relationship.
But where is the accountability? If you realize that a man is not ready to be in a relationship after 6 months, right, he's still stringing you along. 9 months, he's still stringing you along. 1 year, he's still stringing you along. Year 2, you're still stringing you along. Year 3, so on, so on, so on. Year 5, you have a baby. Whose fault is that? Women have to be intentional about their dating life and about how they want their life to flow, right? You can't make a man marry you, right? The most common saying on the internet now, and I think Kevin Samuel says it quite often, is that women control access to sex, men control access to relationships, right? It takes a man to ask you to be his wife, right? We measuring success off of marriages, not boyfriend and girlfriend or fiancés that never ends up into a marriage. But we're looking at it as marriage as the gold standard. Women have to stop letting these men, and I mean, because you all control that, right? You can choose to be with the man or you can choose not to. But wasting 4 or 5 of your years with a guy that does not have the intention to marry you, but you have his child, that's a you problem. There's a him problem too, but it's a you problem because you're wasting your most precious time. Time is valuable to a woman, right? Men don't hold the same value when it comes to that. You know, women thinking about things about childbirth and starting a family and laying a foundation, you know what I mean? And so women have to also stop dating these men that, one, are not in alignment with their goals, aspirations, as it comes down to being a wife or a mother, and 2, we got to stop playing games. Like, a man knows within the first 3 to 6 months if he wants to marry you or not. So if you all are not having intentional conversations month 9, year 1, year and a half, he doesn't know if he wants you to be his wife by a year and a half, 2 years. So it's kind of like, hey, it's your choice. You chose to struggle along with so-and-so and give up your most precious thing that you have valuable to you, and that's your womb.
Okay.
He was good enough for you to. But hold on, he was good enough to give him a baby. But you can't get a ring. So we got to stop having babies out of wedlock.
Okay,
that's not a stable foundation to bring a child into, right? I think that's one thing we both agree on.
Sure. And what I also would want your opinion on to agree on is that there is a very high percentage of men that aren't seeking marriage. Because, as you said, there's 3 to 6 months. It's literally, statistics show 99% of men know between 6 to 8 months whether they see themselves long-term with these women. And so as a woman, she is seeking, hey, I know I want to be with this man. I want something further. And as you said, it's in the man's ball court. So you as a man, you speak with other men on these podcasts. What do you think is the stem reason behind men, you included because you're not married and you've been in a long-term relationship, behind men not actually seeking marriage, being that they know that this person is somebody that they do want to be with?
It goes back to the original statement of age, right? So if we're dealing with reality, right, men mature at a slower rate than women, right? So when a woman is ready to get married and they're saying that men aren't marriage-minded, no, that's a lie. 3 or 4 men are married today. Only 9% of men are married to white women. 18% of men are married to non-black women. That means 88% of men are married to black women, and 3 or 4 of those men are married. So men are married at a higher rate. But the issue is that you can't get your cake and eat it too. You can't be 25 years old and expect a 25-year-old man to marry you. Why? Because he matures at a slower rate. It kind of goes back to the original point. If you are 25 years old and you're a woman, you know what you want. It is safe for you to go marry a man that is older, 30, 35 years old, older than that. He's going to have the money typically that you're possibly going to want, and he's going to be in the mindset where he's a lot more settled. And so a lot of women, younger women, are having success in marrying men that are little 5 to 10 years older than they are. So it's not that men aren't marriage-minded. It's just the men that women are dating are not marriage-minded. I wasn't marriage-minded at 25, but I'm marriage-minded now. And I wasn't married by choice. I mean, it was multiple times that I was not in a relationship by choice. At 22 years old, I was not thinking about marriage. At 24, 25, 26 years old, I wasn't thinking about marriage. But now when I'm at 30, marriage is something that's on my radar, and I control that because I'm the one that's buying the ring. I'm the one that's in a relationship. I'm the one that's getting on bended knee. I'm the one that's proposing. I control access to that. I know what my strengths are as a man and as a leader in the relationship. I just have to make sure I choose the woman that I want to take into that journey with me. We control access to the marriage.
I think that Steve Harvey had mentioned a great point on a show that I had watched where he said a lady was asking this type of question, like, when should my man propose to me? He said that a man should propose until he feels like he has himself together as a man. I thought that was a very good point.
Yeah. I can rock with that. Yeah. I can rock with that. I mean, but you're gambling. You know, you're gambling. What if he doesn't have himself together until 8 years in, and y'all are now 38 years old? So it's like, does that apply to? Is that a blanket statement to apply? And is that something you should take to the bank? No, I think it's somewhere that can get you started. You know what I'm saying? But if he isn't ready until he's 38 years old, you're kind of back into the same mentality, and you're now scarred as a woman because now you're saying black men aren't marriage-minded. He isn't marriage-minded. He isn't marriage-minded, right? So I think women need to date men that are on the same wave as them. You gotta make sure y'all got the same energy.
Yeah, and I don't mean just fully having themselves fully together, because I feel like in relationships you should grow together. You know, nobody's going to be perfect or where they're at in life ever.
Right,
so
and I never think a man is truly ready.
Exactly.
Yeah, I never think a man is truly ready.
Mm-hmm. Me neither.
He just makes a decision. He just makes a decision to mature. You know, he just makes a decision to mature and go into a new level into his life. But is he ever 100% truly ready? No. He has his doubts, you know, because it's in our genetic makeup to think differently than women. I think that's another challenge, too. It's kind of like, think like a man is, that statement from, you mentioned Steve Harvey, that statement is powerful because it's not, you know, think like a man and act like one, but it's like think like one in order to get what you want out of this dating and relationship world that we live in. because it'll
I
just
think it's
help you
important.
understand men better.
Yeah, I think it's important to understand a male's perspective as well. Something I've been single by choice for 3 years in June, and something while I was self-growing, learning myself to the highest capacity that I can thus far. Because we're always it's always an evolution every day. But I actually started looking at different things that was on a male's perspective to really get a guy's perspective as well, because men and women's perspectives on things are so different on so many levels on a lot of things. And I think that communication is 100% key in any relationship, but certain things, especially with men, they don't vocalize a lot of things, so you have to interpret things within your own mind. And sometimes as a woman, we may interpret things in our way, and it be a completely different way than what is meant or as a man is perceiving it themselves. And so I think that's been something beneficial. It's something I do want to touch on, since I did mention the factor of, I guess, openness and communication. Something I did learn over, I guess, the past 2 years. Somebody had mentioned to me that they didn't feel as though they can fully open up to women and confide in them about very personal things that they had going on. I've never had that issue because the people I've dated have been like my best friend, and I've kind of pulled it out of them of like, hey, what's going on, this and that, da-da. So I feel like we created that balance because I'm non-judgmental on everything, and I'm more of a listening ear and just kind of be there, because sometimes people don't want you to talk. They just want, to let it out, express it, and keep going. What do you feel about that topic of men being able to open up to their significant others?
I think there needs to be a preface conversation before he does that. Because if a man is thinking like a woman, you will understand through your dating years, and you will look back over your dating years of the times that you may have confided to a woman and opened up, and how sometimes that was used against you, whether it was used against you in an argument, whether it was brought up later on. Sometimes men want to confide and they never want to hear it again. Right, they want to say it, get it off their chest, and they never want to repeat it. So I feel like there has to be a preface conversation. There needs to be a preface conversation like, hey, if I ever come to you and I feel like I need to confide in you and open up and share some things with you, I just want to talk. I just want to get it off my chest. I don't want it to be thrown in my face later on. I don't want it to be used in an argument. I don't want it to be ever repeated again. I just want you to be a friend. I just want you to listen. I think if that conversation is had before, then you can set your expectation from the individual, the woman in this case, to abide by your wishes if you are being vulnerable and opening up to her.
I think that's a really great method that should be used, because me, just naturally, it should be assumed, but it's not. I have had people confide in me and say, like, the people they've dated have thrown it back in their face, and so it causes them to, in the future, not express certain things, because that's the most, one of the most hurtful things that people can do is try to throw something back to somebody knowing that it's going to, it's a very malicious intent behind it. But with that disclosure of what you said beforehand, you can go and truly judge that person off of their intent after they said that, because if you went ahead and disclosed that and they actually do it, then you can move forward with the relationship of like, this is obviously not the person that you need to be with. Or if you're able to say that and like, okay, now I feel comfortable and interested in her. And then a lot of women, they do want their man to open up to them. And so now they have that type of form of even stronger bond of communication, because I feel as though as black men in general, especially black men in the society, y'all have so much burden, so much weight on your shoulders, and us as women, we want to, alleviate as much of that as we can. And so just to have that type of communication, it definitely would deepen a lot of people's bond with somebody. So I really like the way that you put that.
Yeah, I think also men look at the consistency of what the woman does, right? So if a man assesses his woman and he sees that she's already judgmental about minor things, he's not going to open up to her about something that's big. No matter even if she says, I want you to open up to me, I want you to be open, yada, 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 he's not going to feel comfortable doing that, because you already judge him for not taking out the trash. You already judge him based on how the grass is cut. You already judge him because he had a long day at work and he still didn't come home and rub your feet. You know what I mean? You already judge him for things like that. So men, believe it or not, men hold things in more than what women think they do. And that's one thing that men really try to act like isn't true. A lot of things affect men. They may not show that it affects them, but the biggest thing that they do is they internalize it and they never forget. So anytime something looks similar to another topic, whether it's a topic about relationships, sex, religion, mother-in-law, whatever it may be, if they have consistency relatable to the topic, and the topic that we're discussing now is judgment, then he's just not going to feel comfortable going to her. Right? So he talks to his homeboys, or he talks to his barber, or he talks to his pastor, he talks to his shaman, he talks to whoever that can kind of provide him with a listening ear and a point of view of being non-judgmental, right, and non-biased. And so if women want that intimate relationship with their man, you have to make sure you show consistency of being non-judgmental, not just whenever it's about heated topics that are serious and deep, but even on the light stuff.
Right. And I think it definitely goes both ways because men do it as well. And so I feel like the disclaimer in not bringing certain things up should be for men as well, because men definitely do the same exact thing of what you had mentioned, and women, they go to whoever their outsource is, whether it's their girlfriends, whether it's their mom, whether it's their older peers, their mentors, or people that they're close to. And so I think on both ends, it should definitely be something that people practice in their households, because at the end of the day, communication is everything. And if that person that you're with doesn't have your back, then what do you have? There's no partnership. So thank you so much for all these this great conversation. Before we wrap this up, I would love for you to give us like your mantra or motto that you live by that just comes up in your head.
Oh, you got me on the spot, man. Let me go into my bag real quick. When an idea comes to you about universal law, the people that need what? Let me start over. When an idea comes to you by universal law, the people that need what you have to offer already exist. The law of duality. And I'll read that again. It's something that I look at on a daily basis. When an idea comes to you by universal law, the people that need what you have to offer already exist. An example of that would be that both of us have podcasts, right? So the idea of sitting with Youre is something that's already yours. Well, guess what? The hundreds of thousands of people that you want to hear your episodes already exist.
Exactly.
Right, because the idea, and by universal law, is yours. So you affirm it through this mantra, right? You every time you read it, you say, well, you know what? Those people that I need to hear this already exist. I was talking to my little brother earlier, and the mantra of this week that I was talking to him about is that it's progress over perfection. All right, it's progress over perfection. We're not working to be perfect. We're working to always make progress and move in the right direction. When I first started getting serious about the YouTube stuff about a year and a half ago, I was getting like 200 views, right? Now I'm getting 2,000. So that's multiplied by 10. You know, that's like if you was making $100,000 and now you're making $1 million, or you're making $1 million now you're making $10 million. We're looking at the progress versus being perfect. And I think in due time, if you trust the process, you'll achieve what you want to achieve.
I 100% agree. I definitely feel as though it's always in divine timing, God's alignment, and once you speak it out to the universe, it's done. So I 100% agree with you. That's a good one. That's a great one. So I thank you, Aaron, for coming on and kicking it with your girl, Youre.
Hey, man, I appreciate it. This was dope. Definitely going to run some promo for you so that people can tap into your show, so they can follow you. Make sure you follow us at Black Fly on the Wall. That is blackflyonthewall.com, Black Fly on the Wall on Instagram, YouTube, Black Fly on the Wall. Make sure you subscribe to the channel, support black men trying to make a change, and for us to try to increase communication within the black community. And Youre is doing the same thing on her platform, increasing communication in the black community, whether we agree, whether we disagree, you know, whether we like what the conversation is. I think just getting black people talking is a step in the right direction. You got to take baby
Yeah,
steps.
and mine is universal. It's all different communities. But I think it's important to have these type of discussions with this, with mental health, with all these different things in society and all, I think, because I feel yours is definitely a platform for exposure, definitely a platform for a better change, and that's what we're all trying to do is leave our imprint in a positive way.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So thank you.
Well, peace, love, and blessings to you.
As well. Bye.
All right. Appreciate it.